In our previous episode, we started the backcountry discovery route up on the Wyoming border, got a couple hours south of Steamboat Springs where we found a campsite in a Forest Service campground. We headed out the following morning, made our way down into the Colorado River Valley, and we followed the river for several hours that morning. The monsoonal weather began developing early that day, and while we were having lunch in the town of Gypsum, the weather got so severe that we ended up having to spend the night there and cutting our trip short for the day. We only covered 80 miles, leaving us with 477 miles to get done in 3 days. The following day was beautiful, and we did our best to make up some time. We made our way up Hagerman Pass, then over Weston Pass, and eventually found a great campsite about 15 miles northeast of Buena Vista. We covered 105 miles, but that still left us with 372 miles to get done in 3 days. Good morning. We're here at camp. We're getting ready to pack up. We're a little behind schedule today, but we had a beautiful camp. I'll turn around real quickly. No streams, no lakes, just a lot of wide open space. Very beautiful, very quiet, just birds. The BDRs right now, as I swing around once more, that's the BDR right out there. It's a Forest Service road at this point. The BDR being an accumulation of a number of different roads and highways. So yesterday we had spectacular weather. We went over 2 passes and a gap. I don't know what the difference is. And driving was great. We actually got into low range, got into rock crawling mode yesterday actually. So it was a little slow in a couple of spots, but it was a lot of fun. And the vistas were just unbelievable. So like the campsite we have, no streams, no lakes, but a lot of wide open space and very quiet. So it made a great campsite last night. So we're about 10 miles outside of Buena Vista. We're gonna head into Buena Vista. We need to run to the market and pick up a couple of things, and then we'll continue on our way. About the first quarter of today's trip after Buena Vista is still unexplored territory. And then once we cross Highway 114, we'll be back on a section of the BDR that we drove on our way out. So that's gonna be familiar territory. We know where the campsites are along the way. Less adventurous, but more comfortable because we know what we have in store for us. So, and we have a good idea where we'd like to make it tonight. And we'll see what happens and see what the day brings. But it's another beautiful, spectacular day. So come on along with us. Let's see how the day goes. It should be a great one today as well. The first 10 miles of our trip took us through some muddy forested land. Oh, that was thick and deep. Once we got out of the muddy forested area, the pace picked up a little bit as we crossed a plain and we worked our way up through some forested area. Eventually, Buena Vista came into view as the trail meandered across a mesa and up and down through some valleys. We dropped down off the mesa and met the Arkansas River and followed it into Buena Vista. Once through Buena Vista, we drove over Cottonwood Pass on a paved road, then made a left onto a Forest Service road. That road completed our descent into the Tin Cup Gulch and onward into the town of Tin Cup. Tin Cup is a semi-ghost town, with the only business being a seasonal general store catering to the summer crowd. Tin Cup is home to a handful of year-round locals and some summer-only residents. All the buildings in town are privately owned. Once outside of Tin Cup, we started our ascent to Cumberland Pass at 12,015 feet. The Cumberland Pass road was smooth and beautiful, and eventually led us to the town of Pitkin. Pitkin is a thriving historical mining town at the elevation of 9,242 feet. It has an active growing community and supports a number of outdoor activities year-round. Once outside of Pitkin, we made our way over Juanita Pass and then out into miles and miles of open ranch land. This was finally our chance to make up for some lost time from earlier in the trip. We decided to push on into the evening. We crossed Highway 114, found ourselves back on the Los Pinos Pass Road, went over Los Pinos Pass, and drove into the sunset until eventually it got dark. Good morning. We're at Spruce Campground, which is on the BDR, on the Los Pinos Pass Road. We went through here when we were heading east earlier in the trip. We had seen this campground and had marked that as a nice place to stay. It is seldom used and really lovely alongside a stream back over that direction and some beautiful rock formations. According to the sign, it's maintained by volunteers. So if you happen to be coming through this way, I highly recommend the campground. So we drove long yesterday. We got a late start. We didn't get out of camp until 10:10, and we thought we were maybe 10 miles from Buena Vista, but we didn't really look at the BDR path. When we were, just before we had pulled into the dirt road that took us to last night's camp, the sign said Buena Vista 7 miles that way. But the BDR took the scenic route, which was great actually, no complaints about that at all, but it ended up being more like 20 miles of driving than 7, and went through a lot of forested area that was still muddy from all the rainstorms we've been having, and then went into an off-highway vehicle area that was a lot of fun to drive, but just slow going. So it took us about 2.5 hours just to get to Buena Vista. Once we got through Buena Vista, then we tried to pick things up. We still had a couple of passes to go over yesterday. Cottonwood Pass, which is paved, but still steep road. And then we dropped down in Tin Cup and had a couple other passes after that. And well, we wanted to push on because really we're fighting a deadline right now. We're trying to get the BDR done before this weekend because this weekend is Labor Day. And Labor Day weekend means, from what we've seen already through August, all of the camping sites will be taken, dispersed or otherwise. So we'd like to see if we can get through the BDR in the next 2 days, which we should be able to do, and then we'll start making our way home from there. Where we find a place to stay on Friday night, still to be determined, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, again, the weather's been fantastic this week. Really been so different than the way it's been the last couple of weeks. So looking forward to another really wonderful day out there on the trail with the great weather. We should be going over Cinnamon Pass, finishing up the Alpine Loop today, heading towards Array, and where we end up just depends upon where we find a place to camp. So come on along with us. We'll see what happens. We're back on the Alpine Loop and heading up to Cinnamon Pass. We have 4 spectacular passes ahead of us. This was by far my favorite day of the entire 3-week trip, so sit back and enjoy the ride. This is the Burroughs Park Dispersed Camping Area, which conveniently has a couple of bathrooms and a couple of historical buildings.
Yeah, that number doesn't look too good.
Eventually we came around a bend, and the famous ghost town of Animas Forks was laid out in the valley below us. Off in the distance, we could see the road leading up to California Pass. In 1873, the first prospectors wintered at 11,200 feet here in Animas Forks. In 1875, work began on a road leading up from Silverton, and by 1885, the summer population reached 450 people. The town had over 30 structures, along with electricity, telephone, and telegraph. It wasn't until the early 1920s that things slowed down and the town transformed into the ghost town you see today. On the other side of Animas Forks, the road wound its way up towards the spectacular California Pass. California Pass. I'm going to tell you right now, after doing Imogene, Engineer, Los Pinos, Medano, Cinnamon, you name it, this is an amazing, amazing pass. Just an incredible drive. The view is unbelievable. There's some spectacular mines to look at on the way up, coming up from Animas Forks. I don't know why this one isn't the top of the list for everybody. This thing is just amazing. Oh my God, and here's the view off the other side. This is where we're headed. Oh my gosh, look at this place. Oh, what a view. Oh my God. California Pass. If you're ever out here, don't miss it. Okay, we're at the top of our third pass today. This is Hurricane Pass. Also somewhere around 12,700, 600. It's been Cinnamon, California, Hurricane, and we still have one more to go, Corkscrew Pass, I believe. And it is getting late in the afternoon. Trying to move on, but what a drive. Unbelievable. Corkscrew Pass. Couldn't find a sign for it, but this is it. The road coming off of Corkscrew Pass had some pretty tight turns in it. After coming off the steep section of Corkscrew Pass, it was time to start looking for a campsite for the night. We found a site in the trees that was only about 1.5 miles up from the $1 Million Highway. It was a long day yesterday and a very exciting day today, and we were beat. Good morning. We're here at our camp. We're probably about 5-10 miles outside of Array on the eastern side. We finished California Pass, Hurricane Pass, Corkscrew Pass, and found this area to camp on our way down off of Corkscrew Pass, and decided to call it a night at about 5 o'clock yesterday. So today, well, I've been monitoring a little issue I've been seeing with the vehicle, and that's that every morning when I get up, I check the charge on the main battery and the auxiliary battery under the hood, and the main battery keeps draining. It's slowly over the course of the trip, it's lower each morning, and this morning it was below 12 volts, and that's not a good level to have a battery at. And I don't want to rely on the auxiliary battery to start the car in the morning. It's there for an emergency. What's annoying is I put the main battery in last December after my previous main battery went dead in the middle of nowhere of Death Valley. So I was able to start the car fine with the auxiliary battery, but it's basically a brand new battery that's in there, and not sure what's going on. But that shouldn't be below 12 volts after a night. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to finish the 4th segment of the BDR today. So we'll go down to Array, and then we will drive down the 550 and head over Ophir Pass, and that'll take us over to Telluride. And then from Telluride, that's the end of the 4th segment, and unfortunately I think we're going to have to call the trip there and head back home. We're low on supplies. We were expecting to be home by today, and we're not. So a little disappointing we couldn't finish all 5 segments of the BDR, but I think we got the important ones out of the way.
and sometime we'll just have to come back and do that 5th segment and see what happens. Nonetheless, we'll still get past 4 corners, so we just won't have done that section in the backcountry. But it's been a great trip. We've covered a lot of ground. The 4 segments we've done have been well worth it, and yesterday was the highlight of the entire Colorado trip for me, being up the top of California Pass. That was just incredible. So no regrets at all, but I think it's time we go over one more pass and then start making our way home. So with that, we'll talk to you later. We'll see you out on the road today. You have a good one.
Well, it was the Thursday before Labor Day, and in that 1.5-mile stretch of road to get down to the $1 Million Highway, we had to pull over almost 10 times. So when we did reach the $1 Million Highway and we aired up, we talked about it and decided that traffic was just a little too much for us, and after having such a great trip, no point in finishing it off with some frustration on the trail. And besides, we know we'll be back to finish that last segment. So in the end, no, we were not able to do the BDR in 5 days. But can the BDR be done in 5 days? Well, given good weather and not a lot of holiday traffic, I'd say yes, it can be done in 5 days. But absolutely no regrets, as our 5-day challenge was self-imposed. And we really look forward to returning to Colorado and one day finishing off that last section of the BDR. And we hope that you'll return too for our next episode when we start desert season right here on Adventure Beyond 60.